Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to the Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Today, our guest is Steve. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Nice and warm up here.
Awesome. And Steve, will you let us know where you live and what you do?
Okay, I'm in the Northern California area, up around the Sacramento, southeast of the Sacramento. It's the area called Elk Grove. It's not exactly in the Bay Area, but I'm from the Bay Area and I still work with folks in the Bay Area. So I guess I would be considered Northern California area, but actually I've covered all markets. So in what I do.
Awesome. So can you let us know what is your core role in your business? Because a founder may have a lot of responsibilities, they can wear many hats. So which hats you are wearing?
Well, my role is probably more on a strategic level. I really focus in on what I believe is really critical as far as what's needed. I'm a brand marketing consultant. I had an ad agency in the Bay Area. But now I'm consulting, but I'm still working as an ad agency with certain roles or jobs that I do. Currently, I'm really focused on what I would consider to be what's critical with a lot of companies, and that's going to be in what I believe is really important, which is their outreach in terms of how they're representing their business. And also how that impacts the marketplace as far as customers go. In that, I'm looking at more, and this is one of the things that I just actually posted on LinkedIn. I'm looking more at how companies, instead of focused on selling, how they can actually help companies. And that's one of the things that I think is really important currently, really because of how AI and the dark side of everything is just covering our existence. And I do think being a little honest in what you represent and also being clear in how that's represented. One of the biggest challenges I think is critical today is how do you represent something in a very, what I would call transparent or honest way so that someone can understand how you're going to benefit or help them. Because a lot of times you get caught up in situations where you don't really see a real clear direction or a real clear picture for what could be an end result for someone. My thing, based on my background and based on the fact that I'm from the Bay Area, but I started in New York. And so I have a lot of experience in a lot of major categories of business. But in coming back to the Bay Area, because of that, I was able to work with certain companies, even though I was a small agency and firm, but I work with the big companies in the Bay Area like Safeway, Union Bank, McDonald's, and I was able to leverage my experience. And then I also felt as though in a lot of ways, I think it was kind of critical for me to, in terms of what I've done in my career, to continue to be able to leverage my experience. Right now, because we're in this age of, I would call a transition, especially digitally or let's say in tech, I think the mindset of a lot of folks is I don't know how true they are for their opportunities. One of the things that I think is really important, and I think it's critical in terms of communications, is trying to get to what you really represent and being able to really clarify what that is. Clarity to me is king. I think it's really important as far as what you're saying, but at the same time, I think the benefit of that is that you can engage folks and you can actually create a situation for them that I think the marketplace will acknowledge or let's say recognize. And the way I believe that happens is that I think companies that really have something to offer, they really need to stand behind that. One of the things that Crossover Creative was really strong on was positioning. I still am in consulting. I like to position businesses in what they represent in the marketplace and how important that is. And right now, and I think I mentioned I have something on LinkedIn right now about helping versus selling. It's really focused on how companies can actually represent what they're offering, but not push it down people's throat or not trying to hard sell it or not trying to use a lot of what I would call, I don't want to call it gadgets or things that I think aren't really critical as far as what the takeaway should be and what the real benefit is in terms of how it helps people. And I still think that's really something that is missing now. And I do think right now for me, in terms of what I do and the benefit of what I do is really to get to the core of that and to really represent that at a level, because I do think it's sound in a lot of ways. And I think it's missing. It's missing right now.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So I have seen like in the market, obviously every business wants growth. Everyone wants growth. Everyone is looking for growth. But when we talk about selling versus helping, selling makes sense. But whenever we are helping, obviously, whenever we are helping, it develops more good relation, better relation. But on the other hand, I have seen many clients just exploit, they misuse whenever you are helping them. Because it happens to me, I have seen like it happens to other entrepreneurs as well. So what do you think about this side as well?
Well, that's a hard thing because I think what happens is they lose what I would call that they're professional. And a lot of times startups aren't really professional, right? So, but they lose that professional credibility and I would say ability, especially with major, if they're really trying to develop something on a scale, right? If they don't acknowledge what you're doing in terms of the help, or if they don't realize how important or critical it is in terms of the professional aspect of it, a lot of people think you don't have to. There's certain things you can't you need to do and certain things you don't need to do. Well, ultimately, if you're trying to get to a certain level, you're going to have to look the part. You're going to have to really, I believe, represent it well. And I believe in doing that, you should want to look as though you're capable. Okay. And you should also want to look as though what you're doing is going to be valuable to someone and is going to help them.
This makes sense. This makes sense. But again, for the growth, I believe this is a pretty good thing because I have already tried this thing as well. That whenever we are helping, our relation is way better and long term because I do have some clients who are working with me from many years and they are still doing really well with me and they are going good. But again, when we talk about the growth, isn't it depending on more sales instead of more relations?
You can't get to sales without relations. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't care what you say or what you're thinking. You can't scale without relations and you can't get to those relations without helping. You got to establish that relationship. Otherwise, it's like you could be pounding sand for forever, or you could just, fade away. And in my experience, I'm seeing that more and more in the startup scene. I see that people are trying to push hard to try and actually look as though they're capable, look as though they could scale, look as though they got it, right? But at the same time, they discount the professional aspect of that. And when I say professional, I mean what really makes whatever you're offering valuable, or what I would call, I use the word undeniable. Okay. That's one of the things I focus on, being undeniable. Okay. Doing something or saying something that, your prospects, your customers, they can't deny it. And if you can stand behind that, especially in helping them to understand that, then hey, you the sky's the limit. I mean, you can take off from there. The hard part is being able to establish that, being able to really represent that well. And I think a lot of the startups, they don't really understand it. And they think, oh, we can slap this, we can do this. Now, in terms of the product, I think if the product is there, they need to represent that product in a way that their customers in the marketplace can really see the value of it and where it's going and how it helps them and how it benefits them. It's like, and that, that's also the ingredients or the substance of a brand. If you don't have that particular aspect of what you're representing, then you don't have a brand. And a lot of people decide on things based on their brands. And a lot of the social media is based on that as well. You have to reinforce something. You have to have something that they can believe in.
Yeah, this is something more something for the long term. In the word, in a word, obsessed with quarterly results, because right now the world is obsessed with the quarterly results. Everybody is talking about Q1, Q3, this much revenue in Q1, this much revenue in Q4. So in this quarterly results obsessed world, how do you practically convince a leadership team to invest in long term in long term trust building and strategy? So because this might not have to do a lot with these quarters?
Well, I mean, when you're trying to look at quarterly results, I mean, you have to establish where the results are going to come from. Okay. And you're going to have, and that to me, that's looking at it, not in the short, but in the long run, right? Okay. The quarterly results is the reason why you can really get up and go, or you can really get started, right? But at the same time, you have to represent a long-term, perspective. You have to look. You have to represent where you're going to go. If you're on the 5-yard line, you got to recognize where you're going to go to get to get a TD, right? I mean, that's just the reality of what business represents. So if you don't look as though you have that capability in what you're representing to get to that, to score, or to be in a position to score and to score big and to represent being competitive in what you're representing. That's the other aspect of this. It's not just getting the first or second or third quarter. It's what does it look as on an annual basis? What does it look like? Okay. Yeah. Are you good enough? Are you focused enough to look at yourself on an annual basis? Are you focused enough to look at yourself on a 3 or 4 or 5-year basis? And a lot of that's in the stock market. That's how a lot of people are evaluated. Where's it going to go? Where's the lift going to be? How are they going to break through? And a lot of times it does happen at the beginning based on how they are representing themselves. What does it look like for their current customers? What does it look like? Like I said, I use the 5-yard line, but what about trying to get to the midfield and then score? Yep. I think there's an element of what you represent that should, I would say, I hate to use the word, whatever the 9-yard explanation is for that, but going further than what you're allowed is really, really key, especially when you're small. Okay, looking as though you're capable. Okay, and all the work that I do in the work that I'm even doing currently as a consultant is all representing that level of what I would say perspective in achieving, because I think achieving is really important here. If you can't look at yourself on that level of achievement, or from a first, second, or third quarter, whatever it is, if you don't have that perspective to look at what's going to happen at the first year, the second year, and so on, I think that's a problem. And you really need to focus in on that. And you need to represent that, and you can do it in the beginning. You don't need to, people can see, I believe, I'm talking about investors as well as the marketplace, customers. They can see if someone's representing themselves a certain way where they could really benefit from what they're representing. Okay. Yeah. People can see that that's really a good idea. Or they can say, I like that brand because of blah, 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 right? There's always going to be those equations, right? When you buy things in the marketplace. But if you don't represent that well in terms of how it's clear, how it's beneficial to that point that they cannot deny that it's not beneficial. And that's another aspect of this that I think is really important. And that's all a part of health.
Makes sense. So, in this world right now, every business faces challenges. And every day, many businesses are just burning out. Many businesses shut down because they were not able to cope up with the challenges. And I strongly believe this conception that helping builds a long-term relationship, and this long-term relationship will help you to cope up with the challenges. But if you can put some light on it, it seems like a mindset that you have to consciously choose every single day. What's one small habit or the ritual you practice to ensure you stay in a helping mode and you do not burn out?
Well, I mean, you're talking about being able to have a certain amount of what I would consider to be a certain amount of capability, okay, in what you represent and what you're doing. Seriously, I mean that it's not funny. To me, it is funny, but I don't know if you've looked at. I mean, I've seen some startup presentations, and I've seen companies that have had what I think real opportunities, but they're not representing those opportunities. And I'm looking at it from a short and long term. The long term is really what my perspective is, primarily because of my background with working with big companies. Okay, that's the advantage. Okay, so my perspective is going to be from there. But if I'm working with a small company, I'm going to be looking at them as being in that vein or that lane to be able to develop to that. Okay, and if I feel as though they can't, then that's when I have to say certain things, or when there's this lack of clarity, okay, or this inconsistency that you get with a lot of what I see a lot of startups doing, and they kind of miss the point. And then when they get into the marketplace, or if they can get in the marketplace, there's going to be that drop off or that problem. And that to me, I think is an issue, because I think there are problems when you do get into the marketplace and you do communicate a certain benefit or value, but you can't stand behind it, or you're inconsistent with it, or you're not clear, or you do other things that kind of cloud it or make it harder for your customers to really digest. And also, I think it limits you when you can't really truly stand behind what you represent.
Yeah, got it. So as automation and AI handles more of the transactional parts of selling right now,
Right.
AI is the buzzword nowadays. So
Right.
do you think this human-centric helping mindset will become the only true differentiator for sales and marketing professionals?
Well, I just broke with it. I'm saying that because I use AI. I mean, believe me. I mean, I embraced it, right? So it's not like it's foreign to me. But you can't use AI without what we're talking about.
Mhm.
In other words, the experience of how we guide it and what we do with it is really critical. It makes make an abundance amount of mistakes. It's when I say mistakes, I think in terms of clarity, right? Especially from a brand and from a marketplace standpoint. If it's not clear, if it's not making sense, if I can't see the benefit, and if I'm trying to share this and help somebody with it, then I will have to. I have problems with it, and I edit, I do everything when I work with. But I do understand the value of AI. AI is a great. I tell you, and I'm saying this based on the fact that we're living in a time now where we have help that I think we can utilize, that I think can really benefit quite a few things, and that's the really value behind it. In other words, it compounds a certain amount of opportunity, and it also compounds a certain amount of capability.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, at the end, Steve, what would be your biggest piece of advice for our audience? Our audience is entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs, and the ones who are dreaming to be their own boss.
Well, I mean, I think they have to have a certain amount of resilience in terms of what they represent, but it's got to be something that is clear. Clarity is king as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if you're going to represent something and there's some confusion or there's some inconsistency, then it's not, to me, they're going to have a hard time. And what I like to look at in terms of what I do, or how I can help, I start off with help, is to be able to recognize it. It's to be able to help them get to that level of being able to represent something on a level that I think could be beneficial, not only for them, but for their investors, for the marketplace, and for whatever their product is. And maybe it's because now I've had more time being more of an entity, an individual or consultant, and I have more time to really look at where I believe the marketplace can really, I would say, engage or appreciate help. Okay. And maybe it goes back to that whole positioning of why helping versus selling is a really strong perspective and mindset.
True, true. Well said. So, you have officially blown our minds. Now we need a nap to process all this genius. So, and
Wait. Say that again. Say it again. What you just said.
now we need a nap to process all this genius.
Nah. Shit. Well, it is kind of heavy, huh? Because I'm not saying it, based on me trying to, put down something that's declarative. I just think right now, I have a certain amount of energy for this, especially based on AI. And like I expressed how I do work with AI and how valuable I think it is. But I do think that right now, there is so much opportunity to utilize that, especially when it comes to the benefit of your customers and your investors. I do think that is something that, if you can get behind helping, I think in the short and the long term, I think it's going to be great in the marketplace, and it's going to be great for you. So I do think what's critical is understanding, how do you get to that? How can you represent helping? How can you represent that potential value? Because everybody loves a new idea. Everybody loves a great product. Everybody loves something that I believe is really important or smart or something that we really need. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff we don't need too. Okay, I'll be honest on that side too. There's a lot of stuff that's is unnecessary. But I do think if we can get into a position of recognizing that the values and the potential of the values in terms of how it helps and the benefit of it, then I think the marketplace will be better for it. I think in terms of how technology, especially AI and now predictive AI, which is what on my website I have some examples of that.
Yeah.
Where you're really, really going to be in a great position if you recognize a lot of the benefits and value of some of the things that are being created now.
Exactly. Well, please at the end let our viewers know how they can reach you. You can share your website, social media handles, whatever you want to share.
Well, right now, the URL is crossovercreative.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I have a new posting right now, which is on helping versus selling. Which, if you look, I'm Steve Climons. Hopefully, you have my name somewhere. It's They can reach me or contact me that way. I'd love to consult or talk to some of the viewers in terms of where they're at and what they're potentially looking for. And I also would, right now, because of this experience for the last year and a half in tech, in AI, I'm also interested in investors who are also looking at, having viable ways to go to market based on whoever they're investing with, whatever startups they have. That's another area that I'm interested in helping. So if I can help them, if they could, would like to talk to me in regards to that, that's something that I'm interested in doing right now.
That's great. Well, thank you. And I'm closely following your content on LinkedIn and on your website, and I will keep doing that.
Good,
Awesome.
good. No, I think this is real interesting that Dan, the hook where we talked, and then he read you should read the thing that's on. I don't know if you looked at what's on there now, what's posted.
I looked into it. That's why I was able to ask all these things.
Oh, so you did.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know
yeah,
that you did. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So what did
exactly.
you think? I mean, did you look at the article? Did you read it?
Yeah, exactly. I read that article and it was awesome. In fact, I do believe I'm already a believer on helping instead of selling. So yeah, I liked it. That's
Okay.
why I was interested in it.
Well, I think what's good about it, and I'm feeling it, and it just got out there, but LinkedIn is, and all these social medias, they take forever for people to see stuff and then they don't read it, or so I know that I either have to push it or like if I don't know what the exposure is here and who this goes to, but it would be good for it to see some more light in regards to your audience, or if like on the contact, they have my my website. I think my phone number is on there as well. I don't know if I can give my phone number here, or
Yeah.
if there's a way you have I think Dan has my phone number.
Yeah, Dan has your phone number. In fact, let me wrap it and then we can talk about it. So, thank you for these actionable insights and thanks for sharing your brilliance today. I hope we will stay in touch and have a good day.
Oh,
Bye bye.
absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Bye bye.
Appreciate it. Bye bye.
Bye.